Hello, Star Trek fans, and welcome to the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we're watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 4, Episode 21, For the Cause. This episode aired May 6th, 1996. Before we talk about this one, anything to say about last week's episode, The Muse?
No, it was perfect.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good episode. We both ended up liking it more than we thought we would.
Yes,
Yeah.
I definitely liked that episode more in the rewatch than I did originally.
Yeah, well, that's good. Okay, let's talk about this one.
Okay, I am ready.
In the cold open, Cassidy is trying to get out of Sisko's bed to meet with her engineer, while Sisko tries to convince her not to leave. Eventually, she does get up, get dressed, and head out, and we see Sisko throw his pillow off the bed and switch to hers, which was very cute.
Yes. Aw, they're a cute couple.
And then we jump to the wardroom, which used to be for parties, but now we're getting a briefing from Snodgrass.
Clearly, that's now the serious room.
Yeah. So Snodgrass, also known as Commander Eddington, of course, but Snodgrass is the name that stuck for me, even though I finally have figured out that his name is Eddington. It only took me a couple episodes with him, but Snodgrass still is his name forever now.
Yeah, and he's one of the few members of Starfleet that has a personal cloak and actually disappears for long periods of time.
So in true Star Trek fashion, they make me like him a couple of episodes ago, and now we have a little bit of a turn coming for Snodgrass.
Yes. Now you know why I was biting my tongue when I wanted to say, don't get too attached.
Well, I'd seen images of him not in his Starfleet uniform,
Yeah.
but that's as much as I knew. I didn't know anything else.
Hey, well, we've seen lots of images in Miles in, to quote you, his sexy outfit.
Oh, the sexy outfit, the blue shirt, yeah. Well, Sisko's got his sexy outfit too that is not very sexy, which he wears in this episode.
Sisko's pirate outfit, which is one of my favorite outfits from all of Star Trek.
From the Mirrorverse?
Yes, because I think Cisco can pull off being a pirate.
Oh, yeah, he looks great. Well, partly because he's tall, and tall people can wear those long boots. And yeah, he just looked good. So Snodgrass says this info he's going to share is extremely sensitive and not for anyone below a level 7 security rating. The Cardassian civilian government, drink, has requested 12 Class 4 industrial replicators from the Federation Council. Kira complains that Bajor was only given 2. Though Snodgrass points out dozens of Cardassian planets have had their industrial bases destroyed by the Klingons, while Bajor was just a single planet. With these replicators, the Cardassians will be able to start building power plants and factories again. Starfleet has agreed to send them the replicators, but believe the Maquis will try to stop the shipments or seize the replicators for themselves. Cisco agrees the Cardassian military has been too distracted by the Klingons to pay much attention to the Maquis and the DMZ, and the Maquis will definitely not want the Cardassians to have those replicators.
Yeah. I feel the Federation is missing a chance here to completely cut the legs from under the Maquis by basically giving the Cardassians those replicators with conditions. Give those colonies back to the Federation that they handed over in the treaty. Because the Cardassians are in a complete position of weakness here, and the Federation has a perfect opportunity to remove the Maquis from the picture by telling the Cardassians, sure, we'll give you these, but we want the colonies back.
Well, that would require somebody at the top to think it was a bad idea, or to maybe to admit that it was a bad idea, and they certainly haven't done that.
Yeah.
And also that might give the impression that they were bowing to the so-called terrorists, but I agree with you. That's exactly what they should do.
Yeah.
Just put an end to this.
Exactly.
No, we don't want to do that. Snodgrass says the DMZ between the Federation and Cardassia has become a hotbed of terrorist activity. They suspect the Maquis has built several new bases in the Badlands, making the Cardassians in the DMZ worried. Worf thinks they should be worried. Without the Cardassian military to stop them, the Maquis has a perfect opportunity to drive the Cardassians out of the DMZ permanently.
Wow.
At Worf here at this moment, he said the Marquis instead of the Maquis, which I thought was funny because last week we had Laxwana and now we have this. I mean, don't you hear how everybody else says it?
Well, I think that's the Klingon pronunciation.
Oh, okay. Oh, I love it when you have headcanon. That is awesome. Well, the shipment of replicators will pass through the station in 3 days, so Cisco wants to tighten up security and step up random checks of incoming and outgoing cargo. He also tells Worf to start patrolling the Badlands with the Defiant to show the flag.
Plus, flying the Defiant is kind of cool, so Worf will definitely enjoy that.
Yeah, that's like Worf's favorite activity. That's his hobby. Cisco dismisses everyone, but Odo and Snodgrass stay behind for a private word. They say they have suspicions there's a Maquis smuggler on board the station. They dance around not wanting to say who it is, but eventually they say it's his girlfriend, Kasidy.
Oh, that was great. The way they're really hesitant.
Yeah. Cisco appears to be in really heavy shadow in this scene. It was like Miles turned the lights out when he left the room. It was either that or they were trying to show us that we had now taken Cisco to a dark place.
Definitely. I think that was very intentional, and it was specifically to do that. And I think as well, and I might be jumping ahead a little bit here, was to show that Cisco is really alone in this whole thing.
Well, he certainly made himself alone. He took on all the responsibility of the situation and put himself in the middle of it. I don't know that he had to, but that is what he did.
Interesting.
Well, anyway, he looks very concerned with the shadows across his face, but he doesn't say anything, and we cue the theme song.
Well, that is quite the opening there.
Yeah, that was good.
We go from this couple whose relationship is moving forward and seems very comfortable to, your girlfriend might be a terrorist.
Well, this is exactly what you have to do when you only have 46 minutes. You have to do a quick establish that things are good here so that you can do a quick tear down in the next scene.
Although I object to the use of terrorist when it comes to referring to the Maquis.
Well, you and Miles can have that conversation later.
Yes.
When we come back after the theme, Cisco is a bit defensive. They don't have much evidence except for the length of her deliveries being suspiciously long. There's also a Starfleet intelligence report indicating the Maquis has somebody newly on DS9, which may point to her. He says that as a Federation citizen, surveillance is out of the question without more evidence. But he does say that they should try to find a reason to search her ship.
Oh, wasn't it cute? People in the Federation having rights.
Some of them, if we like them. It's all fine.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Well, now we go to some kind of racquetball game, which seems to be a bit of a contact sport, as Kira elbows the other player to win a point, and everybody cheers. I assume this is spring ball, which we know Kira plays.
Yeah, and I don't know whether that was cheating or whether it's supposed to be like that.
I don't know. They were all clapping. It seemed fine. It seemed more like hockey, because Bashir said she checked him into the wall, but really she elbowed him.
It's not supposed to be contact, but we just come and watch because Kira hits the other person.
And since they can just go and fix their broken nose right afterwards, it's no big deal.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'm not sure why, but there are spectators, which includes Garak and Bashir. And Garak keeps staring at Ziyal, who is also in the crowd. And Bashir tells him to stop it, but he just can't. He just keeps looking over at her.
Yeah, Julian very wisely points out that Ziyal is a friend of Kira and would not like Garak expressing any interest towards her.
True. I didn't realize that was Ziyal at first because it's a different actress. She looks completely different. We changed from the original actress, Sia Batten, who played Ziyal for 2 episodes, to Tracy Middendorf in this episode. And she looks very different and sounds very different.
Garak is being pretty funny in this scene. He's clearly being very overly dramatic, deliberately.
Yeah.
And the way he's faking being offended. I mean, he says to Julian, clearly, you don't think I'm capable of conducting any kind of pleasant discourse without some kind of nefarious ulterior motive.
True.
Yeah, Julian's response to that should have been, yes, Garak, I do know you.
Yeah. When have you ever shown me anything else?
Yeah, and I think it fits with Garak perfectly. I mean, come on, these two are just the cutest couple.
Oh, they're very cute. They're doing that thing, or at least Garak is doing that thing where he tries to pretend like everything that's happened before hasn't happened.
Oh, and, yeah, you're right.
I'm just a tailor. We've never had these conversations about the Obsidian Order or spies or anything.
Yes.
It's like today's a new day.
Oh, these rumors about me being part of the Order, they just never stop.
He's like 51st dates, Garak. Every day he wakes up and it's the same day as yesterday.
Yes. Yeah. I thought it was one of those great little scenes between Garak and Julian. It just expands the character of Garak just that little bit more.
Yeah.
And it shows that almost playful, humorous side of Garak, which, hides the fact that he's a very dark character.
Yeah. Well, now we go to the Cisco quarters, and Cisco is wearing his ugly casual clothes, and he's cooking when Cassidy comes in, followed by Jake.
Wearing pajamas.
Jake is working on his story, and he needs some info. And Cisco uses this opportunity to start asking questions about Cassidy's delivery routes. Very subtle. Yeah. He's trying to play it cool, but he's definitely worried that she might be up to something.
Yeah, well, it's that look at the end of the scene when he's watching Jake and Cassidy interact, and he seems disheartened by the possibility that she's a Maquis.
I know, it's really sad.
Yeah.
But part of me is like, just ask her. Get her out of trouble. If she's gotten herself into some trouble, get her out. That's what you and I would do. We would go and solve the problem together.
Well, I guess the difference is we've been together a very long time, so I don't think I'd be insulted if you said, are you working for a terrorist organization?
That would be a surprising dinner conversation. Yeah. Now we go to a crowded turbolift, and Ziyal and Garak are looking at each other again. When everyone else gets out, Garak asks if Ziyal is going to hurt him. She kind of smiles and says, "You have nothing to fear from me." And Garak says, "And you, my dear, have nothing to fear from me." And they have a cute little moment in the elevator.
Okay, question here.
Yeah.
Was Garak being serious when he asked her that? Although he appeared to be sort of jokey, was he asking a serious question?
I'm not sure. I feel like if he was serious, he wouldn't have said it. He would have done something else.
Yeah.
He would have actually found a way out. Like he maybe would have gotten off the elevator immediately when there were still people on. I think he's suspicious. I don't think he's really terrified of her.
Yeah. I was thinking he was actually serious because perhaps typical Cardassian behavior would be for him to expect that Ziyal was planning on hurting him because of the history between Ziyal's father and grandfather and Garak.
Yeah, I didn't think he was serious. It's hard to tell with Garak, though.
Yes, that's the beauty of Garak, isn't it?
To some degree, I appreciated that he was a little scared of her, even though she was this tiny little female. But I guess he's a little scared of Kira, who is also a tiny little female, Bajoran.
Well, everybody should be scared of Kira.
Yeah.
Especially Cardassians.
Now we go to Odo, and he's trying to inspect Cassidy's ship under the threat of some kind of virus. Cassidy calls Cisco to complain that she's going to miss her delivery window. So Cisco asks Snodgrass if they can do it any quicker, but he says no. So Cisco decides to let her go without the inspection, but after he hangs up, he tells Snodgrass to get to the Defiant and tell Worf to follow her ship, the Zosa.
Yeah.
Their orders are to observe and report anything they find directly to Cisco.
I think it was a little questionable of her to call Cisco and try to get help on what was a public health matter.
Yeah, and he should have just said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about it."
I mean, he justified the decision, I thought, quite well, and I would argue that perhaps a better way of handling this would have been following her ship.
That's a good point. I guess because it wasn't really a public health matter, it was a ruse, you know?
Yeah.
He was like, okay, let's just follow the ship. But yeah, he should have just done that in the first place.
Right.
Well, on the Defiant now, we follow Cassidy into the Badlands to see what she's up to. Miles is just making casual conversation and says that the Maquis using the Badlands for their secret dealings is smart and gutsy. Worf says they're terrorists and should be hunted down and destroyed.
Oh,
Though
dear.
Miles is relatively sympathetic, he says they're just fighting for something they believe in after the Federation signed the treaty and kicked them out of their homes.
I like this because Miles basically spells out the complete betrayal of the colonists by the Federation.
Yeah.
They've abandoned people who needed their help. We saw with the Klingon attack, the Cardassians were bordering on collapsing.
Yeah.
The Federation basically blinked and threw all these people under the bus.
Yeah.
It's funny that Miles clearly sees this as well.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to say it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Part of it might come down to the fact that Miles actually fought against the Cardassians in the past. So
that's true.
It could be a little bit of his personal biases against them.
No, that's true. Well, Worf still thinks it's dishonorable to become a terrorist. So Miles asks Snodgrass what he thinks, and he plays dumb. He's just doing his job. His opinion is irrelevant. And Miles is like, why did I even bring it up?
Yeah, that attitude worked really well in 1945. Just doing my job. Miles does also mention to Worf when he keeps on calling them terrorists that he shouldn't bring this up with Major Kira.
Yeah.
Although I think Miles should also have called Worf out because of his black and white nature of things, that if the House of Duras manipulated their way into the Chancellor of the High Council, would you serve them and swear allegiance?
He might.
Do you think so? The most dishonorable family in Klingon history?
I don't know with Worf sometimes.
Yeah.
He's just like, well, now they're in charge.
Actually, thinking about that, you're probably right.
Because he was never really behind Gowron, but he protected the position.
If the House of Duras united the Klingons and brought them all together under their rule, Worf would be like, yeah, you're awful, but you united my people, so we're good to go.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Well, eventually, a Maquis ship turns up, and Cassidy's freighter beams some cargo over to them.
Guilty.
Guilty. Well, now Ziyal stops into Garak's clothiers for a look around, and also to invite Garak to a holosuite program of a Cardassian sauna. Garak looks completely shocked,
Yes.
And eventually agrees. She says only Cardassians can handle the heat, so there really was no one else that she could invite.
Yeah. I'm still surprised at the end that Garak didn't ask her, can Julian come too?
Well, he couldn't take the heat. That was her point. It's morning now in the Cisco quarters, and Jake orders breakfast, some strange concoction that Cassidy introduced him to. Cisco is a little tired and definitely a little down. Jake starts to make fun of him for missing Cassidy, but he currently has no sense of humor about it. Cisco takes Jake's hand and he says, "This is important. Things change, but not this." And he squeezes Jake's hand. And then he kisses his head and heads to work, and Jake is totally confused.
Oh, that just totally got me. This is why I love the character of Cisco.
Yeah.
There's so many times he seems to just carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. And when he holds Jake's hand there and says, "This is important," love it.
Yeah.
I think this is the most melancholy Cisco you could possibly imagine.
Well, yeah, because you can see that one of the things that he's really worried about is the impact it might have on Jake. Because Jake has been so invested in their relationship and so supportive. And he's worried that it's going to hurt Jake, probably more than he's worried how much it's going to hurt him.
Yeah.
Oh, he's dad of the year.
Well, clearly Cassidy and Jake have bonded really well.
Yes. And he doesn't have Mere Jennifer anymore to fall back to. So he needs somebody.
Yeah, he's stuck with Cassidy.
Snodgrass, Worf, and Miles are updating Cisco and Dax on Cassidy's dealings. The majority of her cargo was organic, so probably food and or medical supplies.
Yeah.
Dax tries to say that's not so bad, but Cisco is having none of that conversation.
Yeah, it just cuts her off.
Yeah, he dismisses everyone. He's in no mood for a chat.
Dax tries to stay to talk to him.
Yep.
And Cisco just says, "Dismissed, old man."
Yep.
He doesn't even want to talk to Dax about it.
No.
This is my comment from earlier when they showed him in the very darkened room. With these decisions and with what's happening, he really is on his own.
Well, again, I would say he's placing himself there because he could talk to Dax.
Yeah.
She obviously has a high enough security clearance to know what's going on in this whole story. And he had her there for that briefing. He didn't have to, but, he could bring her into it.
Do you think it's because Cisco maybe feels embarrassed by this? Professionally, I mean.
I suppose that's the realistic part of it. What would happen in real life is you would be pretty embarrassed and uncomfortable as a leader because you don't want to present this image that you're not able to keep your own house clean.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
But it's also worthwhile to note as a leader that you have to show how to behave in this situation. I don't think that it would be such a bad idea for him to take counsel with someone. But maybe he worries about Dax because Dax is a gossip. Maybe he's worried about just the personal side of it. Except if she has high enough security clearance, she knows the details. So I don't know.
And she knows what's going on. I wouldn't think the gossip would be an issue.
No, not with this.
Maybe it comes down to there are times when Cisco doesn't want to show his vulnerabilities.
I'm sure that's true. And these kind of situations, the reason he's saying no is he doesn't want to hear the softer part. Like he knows what he has to do. And he knows this is a bad thing. What he doesn't want is Dax saying, well, look, it's not that big of a deal. She's delivering medical supplies and food.
Yep.
It's not weapons. And he doesn't care because it doesn't matter. Either way, he still has to do a thing that he doesn't want to do.
Right. Okay, that's a great take, yeah. I think he should still talk to Dax.
Well, I think he should talk to Cassidy. But okay.
Okay, yeah.
Well, now Sisko's looking out of the window in his quarters when Cassidy comes in. He puts on a brave face and pretends that he doesn't know what she's done. But he does ask her about her delivery. She has another run later tonight, and she says Odo can inspect the ship this time. Jay comes in and says he has a new holosuite program of a baseball game between the 61 Yankees and the 78 Red Sox. Cassidy is in, but Sisko says he has to go to work. When he leaves, her face kind of falls, so she seems to know that something is up.
Yeah.
Sisko tells Odo and Snodgrass about Cassidy's next run. Odo thinks that the next time they see the Zosa making a Maquis delivery, they should seize both vessels and arrest everyone. Sisko agrees. So Snodgrass has a private issue to discuss. He tells Sisko that he'd like to be on the station when the replicators arrive tomorrow. But really, it's because he doesn't want to be the one to arrest Cassidy. He's worried there might be a battle, and he doesn't want to be responsible for Sisko's girlfriend's life. Sisko says he'll handle it. I'm not sure the timing makes sense if she's having a run tonight, but the replicators are coming tomorrow.
I assume she meant just leaving tonight.
Oh, okay.
Because I think earlier they said the run took 12 hours.
Oh, I missed that. Okay. All right, well, then it makes sense.
On the surface, you can understand Eddington's concern of you don't want to be reporting to your commanding officer how you killed his girlfriend in a firefight.
Yeah. But on the other hand, it is his job, and he should just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really like that he just so easily got out of that.
Yeah.
And that Cisco was like, oh yeah, you should stay behind. But then he doesn't leave Odo behind. So I'm not sure I bought the excuse there.
Okay, I think I have a way out of this. Eddington is officially Starfleet security.
Yes.
And has been trained, and that's his skill set. Sisko, although he's the commander, isn't specifically trained in that kind of security. So perhaps Cisco is taking the approach that Eddington would be a very good person to have around guarding the replicators. I would additionally add to that if that's what he was thinking, he should have also left Odo, because Odo is the head of security on the station.
Yeah.
So the two of them together would make a full complement. And really, he wouldn't need Odo for what is a Starfleet operation. You're right. In some ways, it doesn't make sense. And in other ways, it does.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little iffy. Plus, Worf is the one commanding the Defiant.
Right.
Eddington would have probably just been there to arrest people, and by then any firefight would have been over. I just felt like Cisco agreed to that awfully quickly, though I suppose Eddington continues to play off of his emotions. So maybe it makes sense there.
That's a good point.
He poked at him a little bit like, I don't want to be responsible for your girlfriend, reminding Cisco that this is his girlfriend. And so he's still a little defensive about it. So he's like, okay, fine. Yes, you go deal with the replicators. I'll go deal with Cassidy.
Eddington deliberately playing off what he knows is Cisco's emotions in this situation. That's a good one.
Scummy.
There is another side of it, which is perhaps Cisco was a little bit concerned that with Worf in charge, they would have come back the next day and go, yeah, we couldn't get on board the ships. We just shot both of them.
We just blew all the ships up.
It was more honorable.
Well, Cisco goes to Cassidy now and invites her to take a spontaneous trip to Risa.
She's about to leave.
He says, let's not even pack a bag. He tries to convince her, but she says she has commitments. He just kind of laughs it off. It was just a crazy idea. And then he says, have a good trip.
Yeah, he says, let's just drop everything and head off. He's owed leave. Let's forget our duty for a bit and just go. When she says, it's a tempting idea, I wish I could take you up on it.
Yeah.
That way Cisco just replies really quietly, so do I.
He just kind of sighs as she leaves.
Do you think she knows she's been caught?
Well, she says later that she did.
I missed that.
But from this point of view, she's not going to send just her crew in.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to cancel because she was told that, well, we find out later why.
Yeah.
So I think she knows that Cisco is suspicious.
Yeah.
I don't know if she knows that he's going to arrest her.
Yeah, I admit I wasn't sure here.
Well, now we're back in the Badlands, but this time it's Miles, Odo, Cisco, and Worf. The Zosa has arrived at the same rendezvous point as before, but there's no Maquis ship yet, so Cisco says they'll wait. In Garak's shop, Quark is complaining about his latest outfit, as Garak seems to be doing some alterations for him.
That's a pretty nice set of curtains that Quark appears to be wearing.
Yeah, it's very ugly.
That jacket is pretty hideous.
Yeah. Kira comes in for a chat, and she pushes Garak up to a wall and tells him to stop playing games with Ziyal. She says if he does anything to hurt her, she'll make him regret it. Garak says he understands, and Kira leaves. By the way, her hair is looking great in this episode. Much better.
Yes.
Quark then asks Garak if he's going to cancel his date with Ziyal, and Garak says it's not a date, but he had already planned to cancel because he'd been imagining Ziyal presenting his head on a platter to her father.
As a gift for his birthday.
Yeah. Quark calls him paranoid, but Garak is like, it's only paranoia if the threats are imagined.
I have threats against my life, he says.
Right. But now after Kira's warning, he thinks maybe he'll go through with it, because if Ziyal were planning to kill him, Kira wouldn't have warned him off. Although Quark says, well, maybe it's all part of the plan, which makes Garak question the invitation.
Okay, question here.
Yeah.
Do you think Quark was picking on Garak? That he was saying that because he knows what Garak is like?
Maybe. Probably. I think it's quite a stretch to assume that if Ziyal was planning to murder Garak, she'd tell Kira, first of all.
Yeah.
And an even bigger stretch for Kira to go along with it. She's had her own opportunities. She's not going to go along with it.
No. Kira would kill you straight out.
Well, she's put up with Garak for 4 seasons. Yeah, she's not going to be a part of a murder plot now, especially one that's complicated and silly like that.
Yeah, exactly. Kira's just going to push you out of an airlock and say, a tragic accident occurred.
So my guess is that Quark doesn't really think that Kira's part of a murder plot.
Yeah.
But I do think that was an honest, quick reaction when Garak is like, oh, well, then this wouldn't be real because Kira, blah, blah, blah. And Quark's like, well, that could have been part of the plan. I think that was an honest reaction.
Do you think that's because the Ferengi would think up a stupidly complex plan that would never work?
Probably. Well, in the Badlands, we're still waiting around. Odo is pacing. He doesn't know why we would be waiting here for over 5 hours. And then Odo suddenly has the idea that her task was to deliver Sisko to the Badlands, not cargo. And Sisko's like, uh-oh. He says the only way to get answers is to go to the Zosa and talk to her. The Defiant now decloaks, and Sisko and Odo beam onto the freighter. He doesn't let Cassidy speak, and he just says he wants to know if her orders were to draw him out here so the Maquis could attack the station. He's shocked that Cassidy would put Jake in danger. She says she doesn't know anything about an attack. She really has no idea what he's talking about. She suspected that Sisko may have followed her, but she was told the medical supplies she's delivering were urgent, and she had to make the delivery no matter what.
Yeah.
She says they wouldn't listen. Even though she'd been making so many runs, she knew that she was looking and appearing, I guess, to others suspicious.
Yeah.
Sisko says, okay, they knew you were going to get caught, and that's why there's no other ship here. But what other reason is there to draw him away from the station? And then he remembers. The replicators.
I think that should have been the forefront of your mind.
Yeah, you would have thought he would have come up with that right away, especially knowing the timing of all this is so specific.
Plus, I think the last thing you would want to do would be attack the station when Kira was in charge, because I don't think Kira would ever stop firing.
Yeah, just getting Sisko away from the station is not going to help.
Yeah, I would think in a battle situation, Sisko is the one who is more likely to be tempered.
Yeah. I do think that's maybe a little bit of why Sisko would be confused, because Kira would still have control of the station, and she knows how to use all the weapons.
Yeah, and she's the definition of battle-hardened.
Yep. Well, back on the station, Snodgrass is telling his underlings that he's received new orders from Starfleet. The replicators are to be transferred to a Vulcan freighter, which is due soon. He tells the Starfleet officers that they're not to tell anyone this, including the Bajorans serving on the station. He also says no comm traffic in or out of the station for the next 9 hours. Then he dismisses everyone just as Major Kira comes in, asking why Snodgrass wanted to see her. He says, I'm afraid I need to take command of the station for the next few hours, and he shoots Kira. And when I'm watching it, I just went, no, Snodgrass, why?
Yes.
Kira goes down.
That was it. That was the big, we're revealing what's up here.
Just like Tom Riker shoots her.
Yeah.
And then he steps over her and locks her in the wardroom.
Well, at least the stunt double with a very bad wig.
Yeah, the stunt doubles in this episode are very visible. Now the Defiant is heading to the station at maximum warp, and no one is answering their hails. They've left the Zosa behind, much to Odo's dismay, without even a security detail on board. Sisko says the priority is to get back to the station. He says Captain Yates is his responsibility. And Odo is like, okay, fine. Sorry I asked.
This also shows Odo's maturing because he doesn't argue with Sisko over this. Earlier, Odo's would have thrown a hissy fit.
Yeah, I think over time, you trust each other more.
Yeah.
But Odo, over the last several episodes, has maybe changed the way that he sees love relationships because he's had to deal with the pain from Kira.
Yes.
And in that episode, Crossfire, when he sort of took his eye off the ball of his duty, he almost got Kira and Shakar killed. So you would think he might still be looking at it that way. Like, Sisko, you're making the same mistake that I made, rather than just sweeping it under the rug. I think he might react a little bit more strongly.
Yeah.
And say, I'm not sure Sisko is making the right decisions. I need to make my own decisions. He certainly could have just left Bajoran detail there without needing Sisko's permission to do that.
Right.
But maybe they didn't bring any Bajoran soldiers along. Maybe they only had Starfleet on the Defiant.
Yeah, you could think you could leave Odo with a couple of Starfleet personnel.
Well, I would definitely not leave Odo. If I'm heading back to the station concerned at some kind of an attack or something going on, I want Odo to come with.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Back on the station, Snodgrass leaves an underling in charge of the station as he heads out with the Vulcan freighter and the replicators. He takes one last look around and removes his comm badge before leaving. Very symbolic.
Now, that was a smart move by Eddington saying that they have radio silence so that none of these people could call Starfleet or the next level of command and say, "Are we sure about these orders?"
Yeah, something funny's going on here.
Yeah, Eddington is a good planner. This doesn't seem like a Deep Space Nine plan.
No, way more complicated and intricate, and it worked.
Yeah.
He did not learn this from people on this station. He must have learned it from the Maquis. Well, in Ops now, Cisco is back and Kira is okay, but Snodgrass is gone.
And Odo brings up how Eddington had anticipated every contingency. Nice.
Absolutely. Kira wonders what they'll tell the Cardassians, and Cisco says the truth. He fooled me and he got away with it. And Kira's like, well, he fooled everybody.
Well, strictly speaking, he didn't fool Kira. He actually shot her.
Well, he's been fooling them for how long? That's the part we don't know.
Right.
And then Snodgrass calls, so Cisco takes the call in his office.
Yeah, he says he left a couple of things in the freezer.
Yeah. We get on FaceTime with Snodgrass, and Cisco asks him why. Snodgrass says he doesn't think explaining his personal motivation is going to change anything. He's calling to ask the Federation to leave them alone. He says the Maquis' quarrel is with the Cardassians, and if the Federation leaves them alone, no one will hear from them again. And Cisco's like, oh, sure. Unless you see another shipment you want to hijack.
Kind of a good point.
And then Snodgrass kind of makes a threat about sending replicators to Cardassia, which was not a great move on his part.
No.
Cisco is surprised that he doesn't know him well enough to know how he responds to threats. But Snodgrass says he does know Cisco because he was like Cisco once, but then he opened his eyes. He doesn't understand why the Federation is so obsessed with the Maquis. He says we've never harmed you, yet we're constantly arrested and harassed. He says it's only because we've left the Federation. Nobody is supposed to leave Paradise. And now you even want Cardassia in the Federation. He says you're worse than the Borg. At least they tell you about their plans for assimilation. You're more insidious. You assimilate people and they don't even know it. Cisco doesn't think much about this speech.
No, doesn't really work very well on him.
No, he just knows that Snodgrass betrayed his oath, his duty, and Cisco. And if it takes him the rest of his life, he'll see Snodgrass arrested, court-martialed, and sent to a penal colony, where he can spend the rest of his life wondering if a ship full of replicators was worth it. And then he hangs up.
Was that Cisco hanging up, or was that Eddington?
I thought Cisco hung up because it was right at the end of his sentence. But
yeah.
Could have been either.
Yeah, I felt like that was Eddington hanging up at that point.
Well, I'm not sure what Eddington was hoping to gain by this.
I think just to deliver the message that...
Leave us alone,
Yeah.
I guess, okay.
I think Cisco's big problem here is the personal betrayal.
Oh, absolutely. Because, yes, not only has he broken his promise, so to speak, to Cisco in his eyes, but he set up his girlfriend.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have done that, man. That was your fatal mistake.
Right.
Because now it's personal.
Oh, yeah, completely.
Well, on to the sauna holosuite, and Ziyal is lying on the hot rocks and asks Garak when he comes in if he's going to lie down.
See, they are just lizards.
Yeah, just lay on the rock. Garak doesn't believe that she would invite the sworn enemy of her father to simply enjoy the heat. But she said killing him did occur to her since she knows that he was in the Obsidian Order and had her grandfather tortured and killed. And she knows that he'd probably kill her without a second thought. And Garak is like, that is all true. But Ziyal doesn't care. She says she's half Bajoran and an outcast, so she can't go back to Cardassia, just like Garak. She says we can spend some time together or ignore each other, but she hopes he'll stay and share stories about Cardassia. Garak finally realizes she's sincere, and he reveals the phaser that he's been holding.
Oh, that was just awesome.
I guess I don't need this.
I mean, he takes it out and just puts it on a rock.
Yeah. He drops the phaser on the floor and he climbs onto the hot rocks and he says, well, what should we talk about first? It seems like coming into the sauna should require a clothing change and maybe some pillows or some towels or something. It looks very uncomfortable and sweaty.
Well, remember the Cardassians don't really dig soft beds and things. We had that from the whole first episode where the Cardassians were basically sleeping on hard beds.
Right, that's true.
And as they're lizards, they just like to lie on the rocks.
Okay. But she's lying on her side and she's like got her elbow bent to use as a pillow because they've still got the spine up to the back of their head, which means that their neck is supposed to be straight. That looked uncomfortable. That's where she needed like a rolled up towel or a pillow.
I'm going with rock pillows.
Yeah, she could have put a rock pillow under her head. Oh.
I love this closing scene. I think it was great to see Garak putting all the kind of motivations that he has onto Ziyal. So it was so funny when she just tells him the truth and says it's because they're both outcasts and she wants to learn more and talk about the homeworld.
Yeah.
That she can't go to, that he can't go to either.
Yeah, and there's no one else there who she can talk to about that.
Yeah.
And she's kind of using the sauna, which she also can't share with anyone else, as like an excuse for them to be together. So, yeah, it was interesting.
This was another scene that I thought was just very heartfelt. There wasn't a deep ulterior motive. It was very innocent. It was just, I want to talk about where we're from.
Right. Well, one more thing has to happen.
Yeah.
The Xhosa has returned to the station without its crew. Cassidy didn't think they should come back just to be arrested.
Good plan.
Sisko said she didn't have to come back either, but she says she did. She says, we both know you left us out there to see if I would come back. She's not going to apologize. She says, you have your duty and I have mine. She understands, but she still loves him, and she didn't want to throw that away. And Sisko says he didn't either. He hugs her, then backs away from her and calls the security dudes that are waiting just outside the door. She says, I'll be back, and he says, I'll be here. And they arrest her. And Sisko is left standing alone in the cargo bay.
It's the way Sisko, when she asks him, do you want to throw it all away? And he really quietly says, no. And then they hug. That gets you.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to think about that. This person is literally on the opposite side, and he still loves her.
Yeah. Well, the end. Before we go to overanalysis, I do want to say how much I loved Cassidy's hair in this episode, at least in this scene. I can't now remember if it was the same in the entire episode.
Yeah.
It's not very long. It just kind of stands up on the top of her head. But it doesn't look like it's overly treated to be straight or anything. I don't know. It just looks really great. And short hair works on her. It doesn't work on everybody.
It works on Kira.
It works on Kira. All right. Do you have any overanalysis?
Oh, yes. I have a few things we can talk about.
Okay.
Did Snodgrass, also known as Eddington, start the whole ball rolling by raising the time discrepancy with Kassidy's ship? Was this a long play by him, or was it Odo who noticed it?
Oh, Snodgrass, totally.
Yeah.
He needed a way to take control of the station.
Yeah.
So he needed something that was going to distract Sisko enough. So absolutely. I think he did all of it.
I thought that was a really risky move, though, because when Cisco sent Worf out in the Defiant, there was nothing to stop Worf in that situation just grabbing both of the ships, making a tactical decision at that point and saying, I needed to stop both of them. There was a terrorist ship. We thought it was transferring weapons. I went and did this.
This is why Sisko said, all you're supposed to do is observe and report back to me. He gave that specific order in that moment.
But I think Worf, despite being given that order, could have reinterpreted it.
Yeah, he could have. He could have also said, I saw some danger.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And yeah, it probably did help that the cargo was not weapons.
Yeah.
90% organic or something.
True. Still very risky. I guess that's why Eddington was along there, because he could have dissuaded Worf from taking further action.
Good point. I also imagine he had a backup plan if something else, needed to be done.
Okay.
Good headcanon.
Next thing. Let's go completely cynical.
Uh-oh.
Did she deliberately choose to get close to Cisco? Was this an undercover op? She was trying to get intelligence and information, and the whole thing was a sham.
I really don't think so. We haven't seen anything to this point that could indicate that.
Yeah.
It could still come back to show that, yes, but I don't think we've seen anything to make us feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
You have more info than I do, so maybe you know something I don't know.
This really is for you because you've only seen it to this point.
I did not have that thought, no.
So you think she was recruited after or was peripherally involved kind of thing? Maybe she didn't even intend to get involved with Cisco.
I think she was recruited after. Once she got that job with the Bajoran government, I think that's when she was recruited.
Gotcha.
Because now she was going to be under less suspicion because she had a legitimate job.
Gotcha.
That's my guess. But also it seems, at least so far, again, we don't have all the details, but it seems like she was trying to do something that she thought was right because she was transporting medical supplies, at least on the last run. She wasn't a gun runner, so she probably felt like she was just helping people.
Okay, that's a good take. Next one.
Yeah.
When did Eddington turn?
Yeah, that is something I don't know. when we talked about Eddington in that episode, The Adversary, when they were having a conversation, that conversation was obviously put there for a reason.
Which you pointed out.
Yes. Maybe this is the reason. What I was trying to figure out, he said you don't join Starfleet to be a lieutenant commander or wear a gold uniform or whatever he said. He's like, you joined to sit in the captain's chair.
You want the 4 pips.
Yeah. And when Cisco told him, hey, you could change to a red uniform and go into the command group.
Yeah.
And he had that momentary look of, oh, I could do that. But then he kind of made a joke and said, oh, no, I have to go and
look after the ambassador,
protect the ambassador or whatever it was. And I wonder if at that point he'd already made the decision. I don't know that he was actively involved at that point, but I feel like by then he'd decided, because otherwise maybe he would have considered going into command and trying to use Cisco as a mentor, because Cisco would have done that for him.
Right. To an extent, that's what's happening with Worf.
Yeah. What's
funny there is from my rewatching of it, I can't believe I missed that in the past. If it's like, oh, that's the point. That's what they're telling us here.
Yeah.
So it's sort of, when you come back and look at that, you go, oh, yeah, it's pretty obvious now.
It's pretty obvious that they're telling you something, because it's kind of out of place. Absolutely. When he says that he doesn't understand, or they don't understand why the Federation is so obsessed with the Maquis. Like, we don't do anything to hurt you. We're just after the Cardassians. Does he have a point? Are the Maquis not doing anything to the Federation and they're only harming Cardassians?
I believe so, but I think the problem is that they're a threat to the peace treaty with the Cardassians.
And it's a physical threat. I mean, they're doing physical damage. And they're.
Yeah, I mean, they were attacking Cardassian outposts. They were basically waging a war against the Cardassians.
I was just surprised that Cisco didn't say something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're taking lives.
I took that as Cisco was more annoyed about Eddington's behavior than the bigger picture.
Well, okay. That's true.
That's what I took from that.
Yeah. All right. Good point. Okay. What else have you got?
And I think my final thing here.
Oh.
Cal Hudson versus Eddington. The difference between the two. I always felt the difference here was that Cal was disillusioned. He felt that the Federation was betraying its duty to its citizens.
He did.
And I think Cal was coming from a moral perspective.
Yeah.
I see Eddington as the guy who feels like he was passed over. That I should have got more. I was the important one. I'm the one that's been wronged and has found something that he can latch onto. I think they're I think this is interesting because they're two very different characters. And I look at Eddington as the guy who wouldn't take the next step. And it's the Federation's fault for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Somebody else's fault, yeah.
Yes. And this is something he's latched onto.
I think that makes sense because Cal was living in the middle of the DMZ situation. Yes. And he became disillusioned with how something that he used to believe in was doing nothing, basically, to help all these people. And I think that really shook the foundation of his beliefs.
Right.
Whereas in this situation, it just seems like Eddington is maybe being a bit of a baby. Like,
right.
Oh, I can't be the captain, so I'm going to go over here. And immediately, flips his allegiances completely and starts talking about, we, when he's talking about the Maquis. But it's like, dude, you've been in it for 5 minutes. What is it? Is it really we?
Yeah.
So, I guess I was looking at him a little bit more as almost a spoiled brat. So, the way you described it is right. It's like it's somebody else's fault that I'm not the captain.
Yeah. And I think Eddington was looking for a cause.
I always thought that Cal was looking for a cause, something he could believe in and fight for, because that's how he felt about Starfleet when he and Cisco were talking about becoming admirals and doing everything they could do. But then he started to realize that the people back living in paradise weren't paying attention to the real things that were happening.
Okay, yes.
And he needed to do something about it.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Eddington, it almost seems like he thinks he's better than everybody else. And he's going to show that he has the moral high ground.
Yeah.
And I'm a better person than you are. He tried to play that card with Cisco, and Cisco's just like, I'm coming for you.
Right.
I really feel like his mistake was making it too personal for Cisco. But if he had paid attention, I guess he wasn't on the station yet when Cal was there, when the Cal thing happened.
Right.
But if he had gone back and read the briefings, I think he would see that Cisco did everything he can to try to get Cal back and to try to stop Cal from what he was doing. He didn't just let him go.
Right.
But
I think by this point as well, if Eddington is involved with the Maquis, he probably would have met Cal.
That's a good point. Cal has disappeared into the Maquis.
Exactly. They're hiding out in the Badlands.
That's true. You'd think they may have chatted.
With the guy from Total Recall.
But they might both think that they're too smart for the other. That's my problem at this point with Snodgrass. He just seems like he is trying to show how much smarter he is than everyone else, and that just never works.
That's also an interesting take. I like that. My final point. My final point is I do like Miles as the one who's got it figured out. Miles is the one who actually understands it. Another reason why I like Miles.
I think Miles was just showing his complete comfort in talking about stuff. He's very comfortable in what he believes and his position and the things he's going to do, and he's going to do his Starfleet job. He's so comfortable that he's willing to have these kind of blunt conversations. Meanwhile, I mean, you could have predicted what Worf was going to say.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but Snodgrass was just like, nope, I'm just doing my job. And yeah, that was a cool scene.
Yeah, I thought so. And plus, Miles could say, what are you going to do? Throw me in prison? I did 20 years standing on my head.
Yeah. He seems over that. I mean, that was weeks ago.
No big deal. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. He's fine.
I hope he didn't miss his daily meetings with the Invisible Counselor.
Oh, that's right. Maybe he rescheduled when he was in the Badlands.
I hope not. Maybe they take the Counselor along on the Defiant.
Oh.
Maybe the Counselor isn't really a person. It's a program, and so he can do it anywhere.
Oh.
You should call Troy. Maybe she can help him.
Yeah. And this is really my final point.
Oh, final.
Yeah. Are we going to bring up why are they using the cloak in the Alpha Quadrant?
To protect Sisko's girlfriend. I mean, priorities.
Yes.
Come on.
That kind of made me laugh of like, oh, have we forgotten about that one?
Yes, we have, and Bashir isn't there to tell us we're not supposed to do it.
Okay, well, with that wraps it up for me.
I only had 2 points in overanalysis, and we talked about both of them. I mean, one of them was, would Snodgrass have really been able to get Sisko to take command of the Defiant that easily?
Yeah.
I mean, we already talked about that. My other point was, Snodgrass is in big trouble because it's personal now with Cisco. So those are my only 2 points that I wrote down, so we've already covered that. Oh, but I do have my final note in this section says, not cool, Snoddy. So I also gave him a nickname.
Oh, you got an additional nickname.
Yeah.
The question is, will Snoddy return?
Oh, I hope so. I assume he does because, like I said, I saw him in non-Starfleet garb in some picture way back at the beginning of the season. And I'm so paranoid about spoilers that whatever that was, I didn't look at. I was like, oh, no, I can't.
Don't want to know.
Look, I don't want to know. It's impossible to not get some spoilers for a show this old, but I'm trying to avoid it as much as I can because I like to be surprised. As long as it's not a horror movie, I like to be surprised.
Okay.
All right, let's go to women in the future. I don't have a lot. Cassidy, obviously, is the main woman in this future. And I guess we're supposed to believe that what she's doing is for an honorable reason.
Yeah.
She was delivering medical supplies, even though she knew at the end there that she was going to get caught. At least she was very suspicious. I think making that point of having her completely in control of her own fate from here. Yeah. And she didn't want to let go of Cisco, and she still came back at the end, knowing she was going to be arrested. I think they're trying to show Cisco here that she's an honorable person. Now, I do think we've seen with him that he is not always by the book. The captains are rarely completely by the book, but Picard is definitely much more by the book than Cisco has been. So hopefully this is not the end of Cassidy. Although I have no idea. I don't know if she comes back.
No spoilers from me.
And I'm not going to look it up. I certainly hope that she does.
I think a big part of that was to show that duty meant the same thing to both of them.
And that their relationship meant the same to both of them. So, yeah, that was a good scene.
Some good relationship writing for a change.
For a change, yeah. Oh, my. That's a good point. Not a lot else to say about the women in this episode. I mean, I like Ziyal, but really that wasn't even really a B story. I mean, those were very tiny scenes.
Yeah.
Not a lot happened there yet. So I don't have too much to say about that yet. And Dax and Kira didn't have a ton to do here. So nothing really else to say for women in the future.
Kira got shot. That was her.
Again. So let's go to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
Absolute thumbs up. This is one of the best episodes of this season.
I also give it a thumbs up. I thought it was a really good episode. I can frequently tell that I really like the episode when I feel like I need to explain in this podcast so many things. And,
Yes.
I give so much details in so many of these scenes and because everything feels important.
Right.
So, yeah, I like that. I have really learned to like the actor playing Snodgrass. And so I was happy to see him, although I'm bummed out that he's now going to be gone because he'll be part of the Maquis. I like the character of Cassidy. I like the actress who plays her. So I think those were all good.
Yeah.
And a little bit of Garak sprinkled in. So, yeah.
What a great episode.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so that wraps up Season 4, Episode 21. Holy cow, we're almost to the end of Season 4.
We are racing through this season. And you know what happens at the end of this season?
First Contact.
Yes. Rebinge It takes on First Contact.
Yeah, we have been talking about doing a special episode of Star Trek First Contact, which is easily James's favorite Star Trek movie. Probably mine as well, although Wrath of Khan had a big impact on me.
Yes.
I feel like I love them both equally. Although when I rewatched Wrath of Khan, I don't think it was last year, I think it was the year before, I'm not sure it holds up really well. It was a little bit cheesy. So I will be curious to watch First Contact because I haven't watched it in quite a while. I know you have watched it recently. That'll be fun.
It gets watched pretty regularly.
All right, well, that's the end of episode 21. Come back next week for episode 22. In the meantime, if you'd like to tell us your own overanalysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at rebingeit@gmail.com or tweet us at rebingeit. We're also on Instagram at rebingeit. You can also check us out on talkthroughmedia.com. You can leave feedback there for individual episodes, and you can listen to the other Star Trek podcasts in our network, including Star Trek Prodigy, a Rebinge It podcast that James and I do.
Thanks for joining us on the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.